Hello everybody, this is a September 2019 budget Infernoid deck profile. So I'm not running Lair of Darkness. I've seen some builds with Lair, I've seen some without it. So this is, I'm trying it without it here. In the future I may try it with Lair of Darkness. But this deck is pretty much budget in its entirety in and of itself, with the exception of a couple of the void spells, which are like $10 or more a piece. So I do have limited copies of those spells. So this is a budget version of the deck. And you really don't need the extra deck too much, which is also budget here, but Tierra is usually the play that you're going into, maybe some Synchros or XEs, but the main deck is the focus. This main deck covers a lot of the bases that you want a deck to cover. It's got negations and quick effects, and you can spam the field with special summons. It's got board wipes. They're all beaters, so pretty powerful deck here that you can pick up for not too much, not too high of a cost. So let's begin with double Onunku as well as double Deviati. So these cards, you banish 3 Infernoids from hand or graveyard to special summon from hand or graveyard, while the combination of all the levels and ranks of effect monsters you control are 8 or lower. So when they're special summoned, you either blow up all spells or traps on the field or blow up all other monsters on the field. And then their quick effects, you tribute a monster to do the opposite. You negate the one that blows up spells and traps, you negate monsters. The one that blows up monsters, you negate spells and traps. So these are powerful cards to go second with. Sometimes, you really want your opponent to have a board presence to kind of dismantle or get rid of with these board wipes. Sometimes going first and you special summon these cards, it can feel like a waste because you're not taking advantage of the board wipe. But they do have quick effects, and if you're going first, probably Deviati is the one you want to have on the field because it negates monster effects. So just stopping their normal summon effect can sometimes shut down their entire turn. And they're also beaters too, which, you make one kind of essential negation and then you go in really hard for damage. That's generally the point of this deck. So another way to help with battle damage is a Tondel. After this card destroys an opponent's monster, you can attack again. So just pushing really hard for damage here. You have your other cards for your interruption. This card helps with the damage. It requires 2 Infernoids to banish to special summon from a hand or graveyard. A little bit easier to get on the field. And then all these other Infernoids do have the effect to banish a card in your opponent's graveyard if you tribute a monster. So just interrupting their movement, their graveyard movement. Maybe something like a Monster Reborn or any Salamangreat cards. All of these Infernoids have that second effect. So double Piatti. This one is okay. It has some hand interruption, which can be kind of annoying if it's very specific activation or window circumstance to achieve here. When it inflicts battle damage by attacking your opponent's monster, you send one random card from their hand to the graveyard. So it can be annoying, like I said, but it's also a lower level Infernoid. So without having to reach that maximum of level, you can special summon one and then go in for another one. So double Sight Samos, this is your level 7 that you're sometimes going into your rank 7s with. So this is your spot removal. At the end of the battle phase, it banishes 1 card on the field if this card attacks an opponent's monster. So if your opponent's playing something like Imperial Order, which really does hurt this deck because there are a lot of spells in this deck, this can be your spot removal. I mean, if you don't always have access to the Deviati back row board wipe. 1 Sagette. This one is okay. I just run it because it's a level 6, and this one plus Decatron gets me my level 7 Synchros, which I did want to run. But it banishes an opponent's extra deck monster when this card declares an attack, and it's their choice, so it really depends on what deck you're playing against. If they're using a deck that relies heavily on the extra deck and they cram their extra deck with all of these essential monsters, then it can be good. But if they don't, it depends on the deck. If they don't rely on their extra deck too much, not too much help. So for the banishing of 1 Infernoids, Petrulia at 2 and Harmodique at 2. So these cards, you're usually starting your play off. A typical Infernoid play is to special summon 1 of these for your pop effect. And again, I like to go second because this card pops monsters, this one pops spells or traps. So you special summon 1 of them, maybe they set 2 on their first turn, the back row, you pop 1 of their spells or traps. This card can't attack when you use this effect, and neither can this one, but maybe you go in for an Tondel special summon and then attack twice with the Tondel as, a big beater. So that's just generally the gist of this deck here, is to get 2 Infernoids on the field. 1 Antra. This one is okay, not totally necessary. It bounces a face-up card your opponent controls. Not a quick effect, but I mean, if you're going second, again, another reason to go second here, if you're getting rid of bouncing their extra deck monsters, and maybe back row too. It does have 0 attack, so not the most help, but, can be okay for the bounce. So 3 Decatrons for our last Infernoids. This one, if it's normal or special, you dump an Infernoid, then this card gains that Infernoid's effect. So it's your way to get Onunku or Deviati's negation effect without having to banish a lot of Infernoids. It's also a level 1 tuner, so it helps with some of these higher level Infernoids to go into your synchros. Some decks take advantage of this card with Rekindling because it is a fire monster with 200 defense. I'm not doing that, but that could be something you want to look into. For our Lightsworn, because Lightsworns and Infernoids do really go together. 3 Raidens. This is just like the pure Lightsworn. You really want to have this card in your opening hand. This is the strongest normal summon because it mills during the main phase, not just during the end phase. So you want to have those Infernoids in the graveyard, either to special summon from the graveyard or to banish to special summon from your hand. So perfect combination of archetypes, perfect synergy, Lightsworns and Infernoids. 3 Lilas, mills during the end phase and is also your back row removal. You have Sight Samos for the banishment of back row if you need to banish back row, and Deviati gets rid of back row, but Lila is just another way here, just an easy built-in normal summon back row removal. And then 1 Lumina. This card is pretty good because it can bring back your Raiden for an easy level 7 synchro. It also brings back that Raiden for a possible tribute fodder, and it just helped you get for a little bit of a bigger board presence, maybe to mill, and then whatever you need just for attacking for monster gate targets. And the last monster is this Morphing Jar. I'm deciding to run this card. It's kind of an alternate strategy to get your cards in the graveyard and also to draw cards too. And it can be a serious interruption to your opponent to get rid of their entire hand. So spells, triple charge of the Light Brigade. This one, you're usually searching Raiden, just like the pure Lightsworns. Raiden is one of the strongest normal summons here, and it just mills 3, so just getting those cards into the graveyard. Triple Monster Gate, tributing one of the Lightsworns, possibly Decatron, to pick up cards from your deck until you find a card that can be normal summoned, and then you special summon it. So if you get lucky and you mill or you pick up a bunch of cards that can't be normal summoned, and it takes a while to reach your Lightsworns, this card can clear your entire deck and just have a bunch of resources in your graveyard for your special summons. Double Void Imagination as well as Banishment. So these cards you could bump up, but they are pretty expensive, so this is what I got. Imagination is very important because it allows you to bypass the restriction of having a cap of 8, a level 8. So it turns all your Infernoids into level 1. So you can have multiple Infernoids on the field, multiple quick effects. Some of those could be negate. So just a pretty strong board presence, especially plus a synchro too. It's also your polymerization. If your opponent controls, you fusion summon Tierra, or if your opponent controls an extra deck monster, you can use up to 6 monsters in your deck as material. So just another reason to go second here, so your opponent can have some kind of extra deck presence, and then you can use this card's even more powerful effect to make a more powerful Tierra. Banishment just searches Imagination. This is just, you want to have a little bit more consistency seeing Imagination in your hand. So I like to run one of this card. I'm glad I have one. It does have a second effect to banish both monsters that battled. This one, maybe Antra has low attack, so it can be a good way to get rid of your opponent's monster without having to battle them legitimately. I am running this Void Seer, which is just a little bit of extra protection. Quick effect that protects from card effects or destruction. Just, keeps those quick effects and those negates alive. 1/1-for-1 to special Decatron. You're also discarding too, so just easy way to get your negate on board. Reasoning, I usually declare 4 when I'm playing against Reasoning because that's the safest level to declare. But this one, you again, just like Monster Gate, you're sending a lot of cards from your deck to the graveyard, and even if they do declare 4, you get a free special summon of a Lightsworn, and then the rest go to the graveyard. And then Card Destruction is the last main deck card because this is just like Morphing Jar. It's just a seriously good card in this graveyard reliant deck. So the extra deck, Double Tierra. This card requires Onunku, Deviati, and 1 or more Infernoid monsters. But remember, one of those Deviatis or Onunkus can be Decatron. So all of this card's effects are good, but the most important, I'm usually shooting for 5 or more because the goal of this card is to get cards in your graveyard. So 5 or more materials mills 3, 8 or more, replenishes your graveyard from the banished pile, and 10 or more discards the entire hand. So you want to have those cards in the graveyard for the resources, so you can just go into Onunku and Deviati or Tondel turn after turn after turn. And 3 or more is okay too. Just again, depends, like Sagette, depends on the extra deck that your opponent is using. Sends 3 cards from the extra deck to the graveyard. But it's a beater too, but you don't even need this card too much. This is not the most important aspect of the deck. You know, a lot of games you can get by without even using this card at all. So some synchros, Michael and Don Dragster. This is a good one, Don Dragster, to just have on the field. You can make it, like I said, Lumina and Raiden easily, just to have that spell and trap negate in addition to the boss monster negates. Michael is just for the milling. Hot Red Dragon Archfiend. This is perfect card in this deck because you know, having 1 card in the extra zone, you want it to be something like this, which takes advantage of being the only monster on your side of the field, so you don't have to blow other cards up. And 1 Trishula, not going into this too much because it requires 2 non-tuner monsters, but you know, this is one of the most splashable, just one of the best generic level 9 synchros. So XYZ's Breaksword and Levier. This is just your generic spot removal that you can make with your Harmodiques or your Lumina. Levier brings back the banish pile, so a lot of banishing going on, so Levier is actually pretty useful. Rank 4 is Minerva, just your milling, just like Michael, perfect in this deck. Abyss Dweller for the generic graveyard interruption, and again, having 1 card in the extra zone, if it's Dweller plus a couple negates too, that's not too bad. Castel for your more offensive plays, as well as a Karen Gorgon, which kind of protects, like Voidseer, protects your boss monsters. Volcasaurus for a rank 5 that you make with your Piatis for some burn damage. Big Eye, which you make with your Saitsamuses for some mind control shenanigans. And the only Link monster I'm running this boar load. Maybe you 1-for-1 specials Decatron, you special summon any other Infernoid. So you got 2 monsters there. Normal summon Lumina. And then bring back Raiden with Lumina. You got 4 materials for boar load. That's a possible play right there. And you have this boar load if you really need it for that non-targeting, non-destruction. That's pretty much the budget Infernoid deck for September 2019. Thanks for watching this one. Like I said, I might update it with Lair of Darkness in the future. So thanks. Bye-bye.